Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell here along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and today we are going to be talking about the best defense of the decade from 2010 to 2019. I bet you can guess who has been named the best defense of the decade. Glenn, why don't you let them know?
Yes, ESPN has chosen your Baltimore Ravens as the best defense of the decade, and kind of surprising in a way. I mean, I guess not surprising that they won, but it was certainly not a open and shut case. If you look at some of these great defense from around the league during that time, I mean, but let me just tell you this: who else was named in this article? Because let's see, the New England Patriots were named the best team of the decade, as well as the best offense and the best head coach in Bill Belichick. So they took home. Yeah, they took home a lot of honors. And also, to no surprise, the Cleveland Browns were named the worst team of the decade. And their head coach, very brief stint head coach, Hugh Jackson, was named the worst coach. And really, you could have probably just put all the Browns coaches' names in a hat and just blindly picked out, and you would have been right.
Yeah, you could have put all the quarterbacks in a hat and picked worst quarterback of the decade, and you would have been right, probably.
Yes, and
picks. You could have done the same with their draft picks.
Oh, yeah. Well, they might be the same. That might be quarterbacks and draft picks. They might be one and the same. But just so you guys know, defense efficiency, the Ravens ranked number 1 for the decade at 59.4. They were third in points for the decade, average giving up 19.7 a game. And they were second in yards, giving up 322.5 per game during that stretch. So they certainly had the stats and the numbers to back it up. But let's talk about a couple of the other teams that they beat out, Jimbo.
Yeah, so two teams that you and I discussed previous to the show that I think, like you said, it's interesting that we beat them out. Not that we don't have a case, but it also gave us a run for our money, and that was the Denver Broncos and the no-fly zone, right, where you had DeMarcus Ware and you had Von Miller, and then you had those guys in the secondary just not
– to leave Chris Harris.
That's right, not letting anything happen back there. But then the other team, of course, Legion of Boom, the Seattle Seahawks, of course, with our player, Earl Thomas, and then, of course, Richard Sherman, Cam, all those guys back there. And of course, you had Bobby Wagner and other guys that were emerging as players, but were also big parts of that unit as well. So those are two teams that come to my mind initially. Any other teams that come to your mind?
The only other one I would say would be the Steelers probably have a pretty good case. They've always been known for having a good defense, and they had Palomalu for the early parts of this decade that we're referring to that certainly made an impact. And, there's a ton of players that can make a name for an argument for themselves. So I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty cool that they were named that. Obviously, you had the Terrell Suggs win Defensive Player of the Year during that stretch in 2011, and they had 2 Hall of Famers, and at least on the chunk of those defenses with Ray and Ed. So they certainly have the players, and then it had guys brought in like Eric Weddle and C.J. Mosley, multiple-time Pro Bowlers for both of those guys. Marlin Humphrey obviously has made a name for himself since he's been drafted a few years back. And then guys like Haloti Ngata, of course, kind of been forgotten, I think, since he went and moved on, went to Detroit, and then I think he ended his career in Philly. But certainly got a lot of names. But let me ask you one question I have, because if they were named the best defense from 2010 to 2019, I don't have the list, and I couldn't find it, but how are they not the best defense from 2000 to 2009?
Yeah, that's you strike a great question there. I mean, they have to be. To me, I mean, when you think about the dominance of the Ravens, sure, 2010, 2019, that's the back. I mean, that's safely the back end of Ray's career. And we brought in some other guys. Of course, Terrell, I would say that's the meat of, a significant portion of his prime. And then Ed, he was already on the back nine, even back then. So those two guys were not at their peak. And you mentioned some other guys who contributed to that, Bart Scott, Haloti Ngata, and others. But you're absolutely right. I mean, if we are the defense of the decade, 2010, 2019, we have to be from 2000 to 2009, right? Like, is there even an argument?
it's an open and shut case as far as I'm concerned. You have an argument from 2010 to 2019 with the teams you mentioned, but I mean, you think about it. They got one of the most historic and best defenses of all time in 2000. They had the best defense in 2006, where, by the way, they averaged 12 points a game allowed.
He's a whiz.
They gave up an average of 14 first downs. I mean, they had 60 sacks in a season, which is insane, led by Trevor Price with 13. And yeah, so in 2006, they had the best defense in the league. And 2008, they had the best defense in the league. So 3 of the years that I know have had the best, the very best. I don't know how. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how there was any other team that could make a case for themselves for that decade.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, there weren't any other good defensive players because we had them all on our roster. No, I'm just kidding. There was obviously other good ones, but I mean, it felt like at every position we had a Pro Bowler, if not an All Pro type guy. When you go back, especially when you go back and look at that roster in 2000, it is shocking to you just read the names, and it's almost like some of the Yankee lineups you see from the past, and you're like, really? All of these guys? I got to pitch to 3 Hall of Famers in a row? Come on, right? So yeah. I think that's pretty incredible. And the Ravens are known for defense. I think Lamar is just starting to turn the tide as far as what we're known for, but I don't think that that's going away based on what we did in the offseason and with our acquisitions. We're a defensive team. I think we're always going to be till the day we are no longer an organization. And so super happy that we got that recognition. Well-deserved. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Ray Lewis is a once-in-a-generation type player, and same thing with Ed Reed. When you got once-in-generation type players at multiple levels on your defense, you're always going to be in that conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're 2 arguably the best to ever do it at their position, and they played a long, long time together here in Baltimore. So, yeah, you're going to have some really good teams. And then, obviously we've had a lot of good coaching come through Baltimore on the defensive side, guys that have gone on to be successful head coaches. And but here's my thing. What's exciting for me is I'm looking at 2020, and there's no reason we can't get a good head start into this next coming decade and maybe win it because do you expect the Ravens to be anything worse than in top 3 defense? When you look at their roster, that secondary is the best in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that front is got to be up there. I mean, it's at least in the top 10 in the NFL. And then you look at the additions to the middle of the defense with the young linebackers they added. If they live up to what their expectations are, I fully expect this defense to be top 3 this season. So, hey, go get them, Ravens. Let's go get them for this next decade.
That's right. You guys let us know what your thoughts are. Make sure to leave your comments. And look, we could be omitting a team in 2010, 2019.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, let us know who they are. State your case if we didn't deserve it, but I think the numbers speak for themselves. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Just go ahead and hit that button. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.